You cut the salt, you started walking, maybe you're even on medication, and your blood pressure is still high. Not slightly high, stubbornly high. If that feels frustrating, it should. Because in many cases, it's not about trying harder. It's about missing what's actually driving it. Let's break that down. When we talk about high blood pressure, we often focus on the numbers on the cuff, that systolic and diastolic reading. It's easy to see that number as the core problem, the thing we need to fix. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the number itself is just a messenger? In many cases, that pressure reading is actually a downstream signal. Think of it as a final readout from a complex network of interconnected systems working behind the scenes. These systems regulate how tightly your blood vessels constrict, how much fluid your kidneys retain, and how your stress hormones behave. When multiple of those systems stay chronically activated, they create a persistent state of high alert in the body. In this situation, lifestyle changes alone, or even a single medication, may not be enough to bring things down. It's not because the treatment failed, but because it only addressed one piece of a much bigger, more intricate puzzle. To truly manage blood pressure, we have to understand the whole picture. While we often focus on factors like salt and stress, one of the most under-discussed drivers of persistent high blood pressure is actually insulin resistance. This is a condition where your body's cells don't respond properly to the hormone insulin, a problem often linked to modern diets and lifestyles. Normally, insulin helps your cells absorb glucose from the blood for energy. But when your cells become less responsive, your pancreas compensates by producing even more insulin to try and force the message through. This state of elevated insulin, known as hyperinsulinemia, has a direct effect on other organs. Specifically, it signals your kidneys to hold on to more sodium and, consequently, more water. Here's the critical part. Even when your muscle and fat tissues are resistant to insulin's metabolic effects, your kidneys remain highly sensitive to its sodium-retaining signal. This is called selective insulin resistance. So you can be metabolically insulin resistant, yet still experience the full blood pressure-raising effects of high insulin. The result is a quiet, gradual expansion of fluid volume throughout your circulatory system that keeps your blood pressure chronically elevated. Now, layer in the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, or RAAS. This system regulates blood volume and vascular tone over the long term. When it's overactive, angiotensin II constricts blood vessels and aldosterone tells your kidneys to retain more sodium and water. Both mechanisms raise blood pressure. In resistant hypertension, excess aldosterone and persistent volume expansion are common findings. This is why medications that block aldosterone often produce significant reductions in people who didn't respond to standard treatment. But what happens when stress becomes chronic? When the body's stress response remains switched on for weeks or months, the hypothalamic-pituitary-adrenal, or HPA axis, never stands down. It continuously signals the adrenal glands to release cortisol, keeping levels persistently high. This elevated cortisol impairs the function of the endothelium, the delicate inner lining of our blood vessels. In a healthy state, the endothelium produces nitric oxide, a molecule that tells blood vessels to relax and widen. Chronic stress disrupts this. As nitric oxide production drops, vessels can't relax properly, and vascular resistance rises. Over time, chronic stress also maintains high sympathetic nervous system activation, our fight-or-flight response. This persistent activation directly raises heart rate, increases the force of each heartbeat, and tightens blood vessels throughout the body. Eventually, those vessels can become structurally stiffer. This means even if the stress improves, the vascular system may continue maintaining higher pressure, creating a new, more dangerous baseline. Now, here's something many people overlook: obstructive sleep apnea. Nearly half of people with sleep apnea have uncontrolled blood pressure, and it's especially common in resistant cases. During apnea episodes, oxygen drops and the brain triggers sympathetic surges to wake you up. Those repeated surges don't stay at night, they carry into the day. Sleep apnea also increases RAAS activity and worsens endothelial dysfunction, making blood pressure harder to control. Even with medication, all of these systems converge on one endpoint: sodium, and water retention. Aldosterone, sympathetic activity, insulin, vasopressin, they all push the kidneys in the same direction. Retain fluid. This is where it all connects. If you only treat blood pressure as a number, you miss the network underneath it. Insulin resistance amplifies RAAS. Chronic stress feeds sympathetic activation. Sleep apnea triggers both, and they all converge on the kidneys and blood vessels. According to guidance from the American Heart Association on resistant hypertension, the issue often isn't medication failure. It's unaddressed physiological drivers, such as primary aldosteronism, sleep apnea, insulin resistance, or persistent sympathetic overactivity. When those drivers are identified and treated, many patients respond. So if your blood pressure has stayed high despite real effort, it may not be about trying harder. It may be about looking deeper. Stubborn blood pressure isn't random. It's layered. And when you understand the layers, the strategy becomes clearer. That's the difference between chasing numbers and understanding health. Remember, life's better with a healthy buzz.